So I figured it was well and truly time to do a video where I corrected misinformation. Unfortunately, there are some creators who are putting out information without really doing their due diligence and without really taking the time to look at what it is they're putting out. But at the same time, there's ideas that get put out by people who misinterpret something, and others run with those ideas, and you get that whole Chinese whispers thing going on. So there's a number of things that I really want to address today, just to correct the misinformation that is out there with regards to Maddie's case. Now, one of the ones that I will correct straight up without any clips or anything is the information that came from a Reddit user called HGhost, I think it was called. Now, if you want more details on this, there's a video that I did where I labelled it something along the lines of I made a mistake, and I explained the whole HGhost situation. There's also a video on Plunder's channel where she discusses it as well, because she got sucked in by this guy as well. Basically, this HGhost person inserted themselves into various pages relating to Maddie Soto, put themselves out there as being someone connected with the family, and they even made connections with Tyler and Tatiana and got photos from Tyler and Tatiana, which they then shared on these pages, basically saying, look, here's proof that I have connections with the family. And they started putting out misinformation. One of the misinformations that was put out was them claiming that Maddie didn't like being called Maddie but preferred Madeline. We know that's utter bullshit, of course, because all the family call her Maddie. Everyone who has spoken about her, except when we've heard the things redacted, have called her Maddie. So we know for starters that that was an untruth. The other thing they did was they came out with this story that, well, actually the family has been contacted by the attorney or the district attorney and told that Maddie was definitely not pregnant. And that was a lie also. There has been no solid confirmation that Maddie was not pregnant. That is something that was put out by this HGhost, who we later found out was actually a predator and was also arrested for having CSAM material. So this was information put out by this HGhost to intentionally mislead. So that's the two things we can check off straight away. No, there's no confirmation of whether or not Maddie was pregnant. And no, Maddie never preferred to be called Madeline over Maddie. So for all the other bits of misinformation that's out there, I've basically put together various clips and excerpts from the documents. So I'm going to go over it all, one thing at a time. Hopefully by the end of it, I will have clarified a number of things. Now, before I jump right in, there's a handful of professional photos like this one that I've been sitting on for several months because I wasn't comfortable with using them because of them being posed and everything, and the poses, what she was wearing, etc. I don't know if I'm just being too precious about this and just being a bit too much of, well, trying to guard over Maddie a bit too much. So I would really like your thoughts on these. I know they're already out there. I've seen them on Plunder's channel. I've seen them on Grizzly's channel. So I know they're already out there, so I'm putting them out there in this one video. But if you believe that they probably shouldn't be included, this will be the only video where I do include them. Now, let's jump into the clips and the documents. So I'm going to start by talking about Maddie's birthday money. There is a misconception out there that Maddie left her birthday money with her grandmother. I've heard it mentioned by several people. It's something that keeps getting mentioned in the comment section of my videos, and I believe that it is information that was put out by a YouTube creator who perhaps misinterpreted what they heard. Now, of course, we're always looking for excuses or reasons to nail Jen and to point out where she has lied. And so many people have said, well, she can't have been sitting there counting Maddie's money with her because Maddie left her money with her grandmother. But that was not the case. So I'm going to play through a few different clips for you just to clarify exactly what was said and what the situation is.
Now, during this 30 minutes that the three of you are in your bedroom, is Madeline engaging in any of her kind of nighttime routine or, getting ready for bed? What else is going on, if anything?
We spent a long time talking about gifts and having her show me, and then we counted out her money.
So that's one of a few clips where Jen specifically refers to Maddie's money in a way that says that they counted it out. Now, I'm going to say that I still don't believe Jen saw Maddie on the Sunday night. And I think that this is just a made-up story. But at the same time, we can't say that basically, no, the money wasn't counted up because the money was left with Yolanda, because that's not what was actually said. So this discussion comes from the interview with Stephanie and Juan, and I'm going to play you what Stephanie said. Listen really carefully to what she's saying, and then I'll just go through it again just to make sure that you picked up on what was actually being said there.
Sunday she had a great birthday. She was happy.
Great birthday.
Like, she got a whole bunch of gifts. She had a lot of money. She didn't take any money with her.
Right.
Like, if she was like trying to run away.
Yeah. We were cleaning the backyard.
Now, yeah, it is a difficult one to listen to because her and Juan are talking over the top of each other. But what Stephanie says there is that she didn't take any money with her. And then she says, like, if she was going to run away. So basically, she did not say she didn't take her money with her from Yolanda's place. No, she said she didn't take any of her money with her. Like, if you were going to run away, and then she got cut off. She's saying here that had Maddie run away, you would expect her to have taken all her money with her, but she did not take her money with her. There is never any mention whatsoever of the money being left at Yolanda's house. The inference here is quite clear. What she's saying is she didn't take her money with her, like what you would expect someone to do if they were running away. So, no, there's nothing here that says that Maddie's money was left behind at Yolanda's place. Unfortunately, a creator has misinterpreted that and put the information out that the money was left at Yolanda's house, and now people believe that is the case when it is actually not the case. And I mean, think logically, what 13-year-old child is going to be given money for their birthday and leave it behind at their grandmother's house? I know that there was the discussion about the possibility of Stefan having taken her Christmas money, but she got that money back. But at the end of the day, nothing has been said here that infers the money was left with Yolanda. What was said was basically Maddie was missing, but her money was not missing. Ergo, Maddie probably didn't run away because she did not take money, she did not take her phone, she did not take any cards. Now, the next thing that I need to talk about is a direct result of another content creator not doing their due diligence. Now, when I research things for any cases I'm covering, I always make sure that I verify everything, or I do my best to verify everything. Like I said, I got sucked in by that H ghost, and there's a whole video out there where I basically admit to my mistake there. But I'm usually pretty good at verifying everything. And certainly, if I'm looking for information online, then if I find something, I will go through a number of checks to make sure that I have correct information. And you'll see that I'll show you my process as we discuss this next thing, and then you'll understand the best way of researching these things. And hopefully by me showing this may prevent future instances of misinformation being put out there. Now, what I'm talking about is the pandemic loans that supposedly Jen Soto took out. The story is that Jen took out $84,000 worth of pandemic loans, which were excused and she didn't have to pay them back, and that she is a fraudster. And on top of that, and here's the thing that concerns me, it's also been said that she deliberately created an LLC so that she could fraudulently get all these PPP loans, and then once she got them, she ended the LLC. Now, in order to get the sources for this, I went and watched a little bit of that creator's video, and that creator was actually encouraging people who were watching to go and report Jen Soto for fraud for these PPP loans, and provided a link that people could use to do that. The problem is, as much as I hate Jen, and as much as I want to see her behind bars, Jen Lisette Soto from Kissimmee in Florida, the Jen Soto that we know, didn't take out any of those loans. So this information about her fraudulently claiming $84,000 with multiple loans is wrong. So I'm going to go through that for you now so you can understand what's going on here. Now, I just have to mention that when it comes to sites from the US government, quite often I find myself blocked or I have issues with those sites. With this site, I encountered multiple issues. So this is actually a screenshot from the video that was put out by another YouTube creator. So hence the reason it is super, super blurry. So I apologise for that. If you're watching it on a device, maybe you can zoom a bit and see with the fuzzies that it does say in the left column there, Jennifer Soto. And you have 7 different ones there. Now, there are 2 that says Jennifer Soto Burgos. Now, let's address that first. This is government funding. This means that for someone to actually apply for funding, they would have to provide proof of their identity. They would probably have to provide their social security number. They would definitely have to provide their LLC. Basically, they'd have to prove who they are. So when I see someone with the name Jennifer Soto Burgos, or whatever it is, to me that says that's definitely not the same Jennifer Soto. And that this has got nothing to do with our Jennifer Soto. When you know someone's name and you're looking them up on the internet, if you see a variation of that name that doesn't match exactly, then you need to take a closer look. Because chances are you're going to find that that person is not the same person. So, going from this blurry screen where you can see 5 Jennifer Sotos and 2 Jennifer Soto Burgos, I decided to dig a bit deeper and actually investigate further. And can I just say, I get frustrated when I have to do the work that someone else should have done in the first place. I don't usually speak out against other creators, but when there is major misinformation being put out, then someone needs to step up and provide clarification. This one bit of misinformation took me probably about 2 hours of going through websites, checking identities, etc., to make sure that I wasn't then putting out misinformation. So, I went onto the Pandemic Oversight webpage. I didn't come across this grid. Like I said, I had a lot of issues with this webpage. It wasn't loading properly for me, and that usually occurs with things that are US government because I'm not in the US. But I did come across the original search part for this. So this is from a PDF, but what I came across was the actual database. So I'm going to go and show you that. Now, because it's a database as opposed to a PDF, it gives you far more information. So what I have here, and I've got 2 screens worth here, so I'll move on to the next one in a second, is I have the first 5 Jennifer Sotos and the first Jennifer Soto Burgos. And the information that's given here that you don't see on the PDF is their locations. You have one Jennifer Soto from Chicago, Illinois, one from Cypress in Texas, one from Aurora in CO, sorry, I'm Australian, I've forgotten that already. Then you have one from LA in California, and this Soto Burgos from Stilton in Philadelphia. Now, before you come at me for the CO, you should be praising me for having learnt the abbreviations for those other states. I'm pretty pleased with myself over that. Okay, so let's have a look at the second page. So it appears that this Jennifer Soto Burgos actually had 3 separate loans, or is possibly listed 3 times because the numbers all match. You also have this Jennifer Soto in Chicago, Illinois, coming up twice, but with 2 separate numbers on the end. So, armed with these names, I went onto a different page to have a look and see if I could discover if these Jennifer Sotos came up under these locations, as in if there were real life Jennifer Sotos in Chicago, Los Angeles, Stilton. And this is what I came up with. Now, I used Been Verified, which is, you can use it as a paid resource or you can use the free version. Now, there are some limitations with this. Sometimes it will link people that aren't connected. But one thing that it does give you is it does give you solid addresses, solid ages. I've done this without paying because obviously I have no need to find out more details about these particular Jennifer Sotos. But there is the option of looking at any one of these Jennifer Sotos that I'm about to go through and clicking on them and doing a thorough report on them. Now, when I did a search for Jennifer Soto, and I left out the middle name because as you saw on the pandemic information, it didn't include middle names. I went Jennifer Soto, all states. And if you look on the left-hand side there, it says, we found 320 records in 31 states for Jennifer Soto in our US directory. The top state of residence is New York, followed by Florida. So there is at least 320 Jennifer Sotos in the United States. So when you look at these PPP loans, and you can see that none of the addresses come up as Kissimmee, Florida, that's probably a good clue that none of those Jennifer Sotos are the Jennifer Lizette Soto from Kissimmee that we know. So let's have a look at what I did come up with in terms of the Jennifer Sotos based on the locations that were given on this PPP site. First of all, obviously, I'm not giving addresses or emails or anything like that because I'm not going to dox these people who have already, I suspect, been reported for fraudulent activity simply because they share a name with Jennifer Soto from Kissimmee, Florida. So I feel really bad for these people. And this is the other reason why I need to clarify this, so that people don't continue to make reports on these people for fraudulent activities, because these people have nothing to do with Jennifer Lizette Soto from Kissimmee. So first, we have a Jennifer L. Soto, who is 50 years old, from Aurora, Colorado. And in fact, because the name is so common, you have another Jennifer Soto who is 44 from Aurora, Colorado. That means they are 2 separate people who live in the same area. If you have a search for Jennifer Soto in Florida, you'll find that there's actually several Jennifer Sotos in Florida too. Moving on, We have a Jennifer Soto from Los Angeles, California, who is 35 years old. And then you have your Jennifer Soto again from LA, California. She had a completely different address to the other Jennifer Sotos from LA, which I'm not going to share with you, but you can always go and do that bit of research yourself if you want to see that. Then you have another Jennifer Soto in LA, California, who's only 29 years old. Now, I did also look up the other ones, like the Jennifer Soto Burgos or whatever and everything, but I don't think I need to go through all of them. If you wish, you now know what you can do, so you can do your own research for that. Now, if someone doesn't appear on being verified, then you can do a search for them under their location, which is what I did with this particular Jennifer Soto from Chicago, Illinois, because she didn't come up in being verified. And I think we can see that the reason she didn't is because she is a sergeant, so there's a level of privacy there. So I apologise to Sergeant Jennifer Soto from Chicago, Illinois, for sharing this bit of information, although obviously I'm not sharing address or pay or anything like that. I'm just showing that she exists. Again, by using a search of Jennifer Soto for location, I came up with a Jennifer Soto in Cypress, Texas, age 51. Once again, I've left out addresses, emails, etc., because I'm not going to dox these poor people who just have the unfortunate luck of sharing a name with Jennifer Soto. So, from all of this, you can see Jen Soto didn't take out any PPP loans at all. Now, I've gone back to the pandemic oversight page because I want to address this notion that Jennifer Soto created an LLC so that she could scam $84,000 from the government and then close the LLC after she had done so. And I also wanted to show you that you can actually check and you can verify these loan amounts against that PDF that was provided. So I'm going to take a look at this Jennifer Soto from Chicago, Illinois. And it says here, loan amount of $41,248. If we look on the second half, so if we're scrolling down, you can see this loan was approved on the 22nd of May 2021. So we'll just stick a pin in that for now. 2021. Keep that in mind. Now we'll move on to the one in Texas. The loan amount there was $7,083. I'm not sure how you can have more than that forgiven. But if you look at the date for that one, that was approved on the 22nd of July 2020. Now, like I said, you can check these amounts against that PDF and see that they match. And like I said, to get those loans, they would have to provide proper identification. So if according to this, it says that the loan was taken out by a Jennifer Soto in Cypress, Texas, you can bet that that's where she was located. Now, going on to the dates. So we've got one approved in 2021, one approved in 2020. So let's have a look at Jennifer Soto's LLC. Okay, so this is the LLC record for Jennifer Soto. You can see, yes, it is the correct Jennifer Soto because it does have her address down there. I'm not doxing because I think we all know her address off by heart by now. But this is her LLC. Date filed 1st of December. Sorry, have to Americanise that. The 12th of January 2022. She got her LLC after all those pandemic loans were approved. You can go back and you can actually check every single one of them and you will see. Aside from that, if you have an LLC, you've got to have it with your address on it, like here. She can't get an LLC for all those other addresses. Voluntary dissolution occurred 29th of November 2022. Now, many of you actually know what this is about. Jen Soto tried setting up a dog minding business, which, like so many of the things that Jen did, completely failed. She did it through Rover, apparently. Now, I believe that there is a record of that still, and that there was apparently a TikTok where someone showed images of her dog minding business from Rover. And I think that Paula might have also covered this on her channel at some point in time. Like I said, I spent several hours yesterday pulling all the data together just to debunk this one thing. So to then go through all of Paula's videos, that's Plunder, to find the video where she discussed Jen's dog minding business just didn't seem like an effective use of my time. But by all means, hop across, check out Paula's playlist for Maddie Soto, and I'm pretty certain there's a video there which discusses this dog minding business. So this LLC here is Jen's attempt at starting up a dog minding business that went kaput. We even hear from Deb Stearns about Jen's dog minding business going kaput. I'll play that shortly, but first of all, I also need to address the issue of the GoFundMe. Because, yes, Jen's sister Stephanie did create a GoFundMe account to cover the cost of Maddie's funeral. And people have said, well, that's a scam because the funeral was actually paid for. A funeral home actually offered to pay for it. They donated the costs themselves. So I thought, okay, so let's have a look at this and see if that is truly the case. So you have the GoFundMe page, and you can still find it if you search Madeline Soto GoFundMe, I think. And here they raised $16,000 or $16,627. And the purpose was the funds will be used for Maddie's funeral arrangements and to support our family. Thank you for your love, kindness and support. Now, the update provided on 7th of March 2024. Thank you to everyone for the overwhelming amount of support and generosity. We have reached the goal and have paused donations for the time being. There was a funeral home that graciously offered to cover the cost of Maddie's funeral. However, my family and I had already made arrangements when the offer was made. In other words, they'd already organised Maddie's funeral when another funeral home made the offer of covering the cost. Now you could imagine that it's not something that you're just going to go shop around and go, okay, well, can we now have her body moved from this other funeral home to the one that's offering to do it for free? At that point, they would have signed contracts. They'd probably already paid a deposit. So, obviously not something that can be changed at short notice. And certainly when you're grieving, not something that you would have the mental capacity to want to be messing around with changing. So, according to this, the offer was made to cover the cost of Maddie's funeral, but that offer was not accepted because arrangements had already been made. Now, I don't know funeral costs in the United States, so I don't know how much of that money would have gone towards the funeral and how much went towards the money. Personally, I don't believe Jen should have seen a cent of that money. And I will say that this particular GoFundMe is, I think it's, fund protected is what they say, meaning that if you made a donation, you can request your donation back if you believe that it was not used for the right purpose. I'd be interested to know what the cost of a funeral is in the United States, to know how much of that $16,000 went towards a funeral. But at the end of the day, some of that money did go towards Maddie's funeral, because what they're saying here is that the offer for it to be paid for occurred after they had already made arrangements. Okay, so I'm going to move on and play the clip from Deb Stearns, where she's talking about Jen and the dog minding, and then I'll move on to the next thing.
They were both supposed to be working at Disney together, but she can't keep a job
Do you know why?
because of the bipolar.
Well,
She doesn't want to lose her state benefits.
but depending on the type of work, she had back issues or something, so she couldn't do physical things. And now she did have a job as a concierge that didn't require any pressure or stress on her back or something. But there was always something that prevented her from working. Couldn't do dog sitting or whatever job it was. It would last no more than 2 weeks.
So you may have wondered who this dog was that Maddie was sitting with. I had speculated that maybe it was Tyler's dog, maybe it belonged to another family member, but, and I can't remember my source, it may have been Paula. Like I said, I think she did a video on this. This particular photo was used to promote Jen's pet sitting business. So I believe this is a dog that she was actually pet sitting. So we know now that the LLC loans, the PPP loans, were not Jen Soto's loans. She did not defraud the government of $84,000. As much as we love to hate the woman, we need to at least make sure that we are putting factual information out there. Jen Soto did not get any PPP loans from the government. If you go back and look at them, you will see that every single one of them is from a different state. Also, if you look at the dates that those loans were taken out, they were all taken out before Jen even applied for her LLC. Jen's LLC was for this pet sitting business that failed, hence the reason she got rid of the LLC. Okay, so let's move on. The next thing I want to address, which won't take nearly as long, is the misinformation about the tripod. Now, this came from early on in the piece when the first lot of documents were put out. A rather influential YouTube creator was going through the documents and saw in the list of items that had been removed, list of evidence, a tripod. And somehow the assumption was made that that tripod came from the upstairs room. And I'm not sure why that assumption was first made. But because this is quite an influential content creator who made that assumption and gave that information, it has now become something that everyone believes as being a concrete fact. When in reality, that tripod actually came from a drawer in Maddie's makeshift room. Now, the fact that they've taken it as evidence clearly suggests that they still believe it is important evidence, but it's not from the upstairs room. Is it possible that could have just been Maddie's own phone tripod? This is a girl who was doing her own little YouTube shorts where she was dancing, and it seems plausible to me. I know there is a webcam on her computer, but it seems plausible to me that it would be easier to set up a shot using a tripod and your phone as opposed to trying to dance in front of that camera, which was pointing towards her bed and didn't really give her room to dance. So I suspect the tripod may have been Maddie's for using with her YouTube videos. But we can't discount the possibility also that he was using it. So let's have a look at the documents just to clarify this. So this is a report from one of the officers. So they're talking about the search warrant, and here they are talking about, I'll read from some of the top first. East of the front door and along the east wall was a couch. A dining table was west of the couch. North of the couch were partition screens creating a makeshift bedroom in the northeast corner of the first floor. A pink dinosaur blanket was hanging off the east partition screen in this makeshift bedroom. There's a long list of what's in there. Go down to the fourth line from the bottom. A dresser with a television was along the east wall. A phone tripod was in the bottom drawer. So this is Maddie's room. The phone tripod was in the bottom drawer of the dresser in Maddie's room. Let's have a look at it on the evidence list. Okay, so if you follow my not so brilliant highlighted dot, you have it clearly here. One phone tripod, bedroom area of living room. Now, if you go through the entire evidence list, you'll see there is only one phone tripod listed, and that is this one that was in the bedroom area of the living room. Now, we know that a lot of the footage came from that area, so it is possible that he was making use of it. But I suspect that it did, in fact, belong to Maddie. In the written lists, I think it's described as being a purple phone tripod, which would match Maddie's purple iPhone. But that's not to say that he wasn't using it, but it wasn't upstairs. Okay, so moving on. First of all, if you're new to my channel, that noise in the background is my chihuahua snoring. when it's not too hot, she loves to just snuggle under a blanket, goes into her own little happy world and snores like a buzzsaw. So let's move on and talk about the hotel room. I've addressed this in a number of videos, so I'm not going to go too in depth, but the notion is that basically Chris Stearns went to Orlando to pay for a hotel room for Jen and Stefan. And while I think a lot of people have got the idea of this now because I have covered it in a number of videos, it still gets brought up occasionally, so I thought I might as well just address it here again. Now, if you want to find out more about this part of the timeline, there's actually a number of videos that I've done talking about Chris Stearns and the trip to Orlando, which show that the stories given by Chris and Jen and Stefan don't quite add up, and there's definitely something going on here. But for the purpose of this video, I just want to address this notion of him paying for the hotel room. Where does this come from? Both Jen and Deb put this notion out there. They didn't actually say it outright though. They just inferred, and people ran with it. But we also have Chris Stearns being asked outright by officers and saying no, they paid for themselves. So there's 3 clips here that I'm going to play, and we'll discuss them as we go along.
That was another thing. I don't have that much money. I live off of disability. I couldn't afford to put us up on a hotel. Like when you guys said that we couldn't return, I was like, I didn't know where to go. I was trying to think if any family member would have a spare room or anything like that, and not that could take the 3 of us, or when I say 3 of us, I mean him and the dog. And I know at my mom's house we wouldn't have been welcome. My mom does not like Stefan. She's never liked Stefan. So I knew that our only option was to go to a hotel, but I couldn't afford it. So we called Chris, and Chris met us at our hotel.
So for those people who still think that Jen is a little bit simple, here she is very masterfully skating around the truth. She says to them, I couldn't afford a hotel. And then she goes with the long story of couldn't go to the parents' place because they hate Stefan, yada yada yada. So we called Chris. She doesn't say Chris paid for our hotel. She says, and Chris met us at our hotel. She's expecting the interpretation to be that they called Chris and he came and he paid for their hotel room. And that's what so many people believed. And that's what she expected the detectives to believe. Of course, by the point in time where this interview was done, they'd already interviewed Chris and they knew that he paid for the hotel room. So they just sat there and let her lie. But definitely, she was trying to give the impression that Chris paid for the hotel room, but she never actually said it outright. She just skirted around the truth there. She claimed that she couldn't afford it, and then she's like, we didn't know what to do, so we called Chris and he met us at the hotel. If you look at the timeline around this, and if you look at my video that I did around the hotel and Chris, you'll see that they actually sent Chris a message before he'd even arrived at Orlando, almost an hour before he arrived at Orlando, telling him which hotel they were at, meaning they'd already checked in. Let's hear what Deb Stearns had to say.
The police kicked everybody out of the townhouse, and
quarantined it, roped it off. They had no money. They had no place to go. He didn't want to go to the in-laws' house, of course, or to her mother's house. They got along like oil and water. But it was, Chris went there to get them into a hotel and to be there as emotional support.
So it seems like Deb Stearns is a little bit more comfortable with lying, because she almost directly says that he paid for them to get into the hotel. But not quite. She says they called Chris for him to get them into a hotel, which actually he didn't do because they already were in the hotel when he got there. But once again, she's inferring that he paid for their hotel room because they had no money, which we know is not the truth. Definitely, it seems that Jen is actually a more skilled liar than Deb Stearns. And what I find interesting here is it shows us the relationship between Deb and Chris. When she started telling that story, she had her hand sort of hovering over him in his direction. Essentially, the body language there was, this is my story, you keep your mouth shut, I'm going to tell it my way. And he stayed quiet and he did not correct her at all. But we do have on record what the actual truth is. So let's listen to that.
And from what I understand, did you pay for the hotel or did they pay for it?
They paid for theirs, and I paid for mine, but then it said a pet-friendly hotel, pet-friendly if you pay $150 for the night. Mm-hmm. Okay, so, all right. So I paid for the dog to stay.
Okay, their dog.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I actually reimbursed her for it.
Mm-hmm.
So Chris states here quite clearly they paid for themselves for the hotel. He then says he paid for the dog, but he clarifies that and says, I reimbursed them for that. Now, we know that there would be records of who paid at the hotel. And I'm pretty certain that law enforcement would be checking that. Chris Stearns, as an ex-policeman, would realise that they're going to check those records. So he wouldn't have any reason to lie and say that he didn't pay for them to get into the hotel room. Plus, we know from the actual timeline, the data that's available, that they were already checked in before Chris even reached Orlando. So this notion of him paying for the hotel room has basically come from Jen and Deb trying to manipulate the listener by giving half-truths. Jen was a bit more skillful at it than Deb Stearns, but essentially they've tried to imply that Chris paid for the hotel room when in actual fact Jen or Stefan paid for that hotel room, not Chris. Okay, now the next thing which is causing no end of confusion for people is the computer that was from Stefan's room, the USBs and the hard drive that was in the storage unit. So I'm going to look at all of those together because they do interconnect. So I think it's just easier to go through each one of them for you and to clarify as we go along.
There was, the thumb drive that you provided.
Was okay, so there was stuff off of
So
that.
there, I can tell you there was a. So identifying those individuals, it'd be almost nearly impossible.
30,000?
Yes, sir.
What about the hard drive?
The hard drive was not used when the forensics unit got it. I don't think it was used since like 2020 or something like that.
Well, why did he go to the extent of hiding the damn thing? Because like I said, he was on that computer Sunday morning, and then I assumed when I handed it over that it was...
So the desktop that you handed us,
yeah,
there was not a hard drive in it.
Right, and then that surprised me. And then when I went to move out of the storage unit, it was at a location at the back. And if you've seen photos, there was a rack of shelves. And
Yeah, I was there that night when we did this.
okay, so you could easily slide back to the rear of that, and from where it was, you could easily tuck in where I found the hard drive. You could have easily just placed it.
Right.
So I don't know if he.
But yeah, there was no activity on the hard drive for years.
Huh.
So we don't know where the hard drive on the computer that he was using when you said you saw him using the computer, where that hard drive is.
Oh, this isn't the same hard drive?
No.
Oh.
Because if he was using it that morning,
Yeah.
we would have been able to tell through the forensics dump of it.
Right.
And no, it hasn't been used since, I want to say like 2020 maybe.
Okay, so it was an assumption on my part that was the same hard drive. But I don't know how he put that hard drive in it, and I don't know how he put that in there. So he must have just destroyed the thing.
Hey,
It would have made
Which we don't.
best sense to do that for sure, but too bad he wasn't smart enough about the phone. Not that I would be encouraging that, but still.
So the discussion here is over the USBs that Chris gave them, the hard drive that he found in the storage unit, and the computer tower from Stefan's room. And what he's believing here is that the hard drive that he gave them, which he found in the storage unit, was out of the computer from Stefan's room. Now, I have questions over whether he actually did find that hard drive in the storage unit, but I'll save them for another time, and I have discussed them in other videos, because that storage unit was searched, and under the search warrant, one of the things they were looking for was any kind of devices that could be used for saving CSAM materials. And he's claiming that it was just tucked in somewhere. Or I think in one of the documents it says that he found it in a box with a watch. And yet, apparently the storage unit was searched and they didn't see it. So I do have issues over that. But basically what it comes down to is that the hard drive that he gave them, claiming that it was from the storage unit, hadn't been used since 2020. It was not the hard drive from Stefan's own computer. The hard drive that had been in Stefan's computer, which he had been using shortly before leaving Northport to go to Orlando or Kissimmee for Maddie's birthday, is missing. It was at some point in time removed from the computer and disposed of. This means that there was actually nothing of evidentiary value in the storage unit. The hard drive that Chris gave them had nothing to do with, well, as far as we know, nothing to do with the case. Because we do know that they are saying they have only got images dating back 4 years, meaning that whatever was on that hard drive wasn't images of Maddie. So you hear the cogs going with Chris as he starts saying he's got this narrative stuck in his head about the hard drive having been put in the storage unit by Stefan. And he keeps trying to run with this narrative after they've told him that's not the hard drive from Stefan's computer. Because he starts saying, well, I don't know how he got it in there. And it's like he starts whirring to a halt as he suddenly realises and processes what they've told him. That's not the hard drive from Stefan's computer. So he then he rambles on a bit about where it was and how it would have been hard to put it there. Still completely missing the point. And then he twigs and he's like, so hang on. The hard drive from Stefan's computer is missing. He must have destroyed it. So basically the information we're getting here is that you have the USBs that Chris gave them. It's not discussed where they came from, but that's in documents, which I'll cover in a minute. The the hard drive which he claims came from the storage unit is not connected with this case at all. The one that was in Stefan's computer is gone. They don't know what happened to it, but it went missing, wasn't recovered. So let's have a look at some documents. Now I'm going to go with the paragraph that I've highlighted first, because one of the things that's got people really, really confused is they believe that Stefan's computer was in the garage, which is not correct. So I'm going to read you this paragraph, and then there's more here to do with the USBs and the other hard drive, but I'll keep going and I'll get through all of this in what we've got here from the documents. So in this paragraph here, after Stefan was arrested, Stefan's father, who resides in Northport, Florida, contacted the Northport Police Department in reference to him wanting to hand over one of Stefan's computer towers he found while cleaning out Stefan's room. Stefan's father was in fear that the computer tower may potentially have more videos and photos of unlawful sexual activity with minors on it. Northport Police submitted the Cyber Power PC tower into their evidence, which was later transferred over to Kissimmee Police Department, pending a search warrant. So it is said quite clearly here that he found that the computer tower was in Stefan's room, not in the garage. Now, the paragraph below it, a lawful search warrant was conducted on the tower computer by Agent Georgie Torres. It was discovered the tower computer was missing the hard drive, even though Chris stated he observed Stefan using that computer on the 24th of the 2nd, 2 days before Madeline's death. Then we have, on April 11th, 2024, I was notified by Chris that he had located a hard drive which would be used in a tower computer, a black USB drive and a silver USB drive. The hard drive was located in a storage unit which Chris has control over, however is missing a key to the lock to the unit. Then you've got the misinformation of him, well no, not misinformation, but he was in the area of the storage unit because that's basically a few blocks from their house. But we know that he wasn't there, and I've covered that later on in this video. The USBs were located in Stefan's bedroom that Chris was cleaning. So you have the computer tower and the USBs were in Stefan's room. The hard drive was in the storage unit. Okay, moving on to the next page. Now this paragraph explains why there is confusion over the gaming computer being in the garage. So if you look for the pink dot, Prior to departing the residence, Christopher explained his son had left a gaming computer at their residence and he had placed it in the garage after he was arrested, as he no longer wanted it in his home and believed it was of evidentiary value to law enforcement. He further recalled Stefan had accessed the computer within the past week, possibly after Madeline went missing. So basically the information here is that computer tower was in Stefan's room. He'd actually been using it just before he left to drive to Kissimmee. Meaning that when he returned to Northport to pull the hard drive out and dispose of it. After Stefan was arrested, because Chris knew what he was arrested for, he was concerned that there might have been more evidence on that computer, didn't want it in his house, so he put it in the garage until such time as it was collected by Northport Police. Now here's an interesting thought that I only just thought of. Now, we know the hard drive was removed from that tower. Had Chris left that tower in Stefan's room and not touched it, then they could prove that it was Stefan who had removed the hard drive, because theoretically the only prints on that tower would be Stefan's. But now that tower has at least 2 lots of prints on it, Stefan's and Chris's. Meaning that if there was any possibility of using that as evidence, that's pretty much gone out the window, because they can't now prove that it was Stefan that removed the hard drive. For all we know, Chris removed the hard drive and then moved the tower so that he would have an excuse for his prints being on the tower. So even though that hard drive has been removed and potentially destroyed, that's not going to be useful at all now in trial, as far as I can tell. So we have the tower with no hard drive, and that hard drive is gone completely. The reason people are confused as to the location of the tower is because it was in Stefan's bedroom and Chris moved it into the garage after Stefan was arrested. The USBs, as you see from these documents, were also in Stefan's room. The hard drive that was found in the storage unit has no connection with any of this whatsoever. It hadn't been used in 4 years. We know from the documents that they only have CSAM images dating back 4 years, meaning that there's probably nothing on that hard drive of evidentiary value anyway. So let's move on from these, and I want to talk about the text message about Stefan giving Maddie an extra dose of her medications. Now, I haven't had time to watch the video in question, but quite recently a creator put out a video claiming that the night that Maddie died, that she'd been given a second dose of her medications and that there was a text message showing that. Now, this is a misinterpretation of the facts from what I can gather, and I'm going to go through interviews and documents to show you that this is the case. Like I said, I haven't watched the video, so it just may be that the thumbnail and description of the video implied that, but that they did actually provide clear information in their video. But unfortunately, a lot of people are now under the impression that after Maddie had gone missing or was deceased, that they did discover text messages from that evening saying that Stefan had given Maddie an extra dose, which is not actually the case. So we'll listen to a video, and then I'll show you the document and I'll explain it a bit more clearly.
Did Madeline ever have like effects from taking the hydroxyzine in the morning? Like still be kind of sluggish?
Yes.
How often would that occur? Was that like every morning or not every morning?
Not every morning. If we happen to give her medication later than normal than routine, that would happen. But
Okay. And were there ever any instances where she had taken too much of the medicine? Perhaps you and Stefan had given her medicine, not knowing that the other person had?
yes, that's happened once before.
Just once or more?
I want to say one.
Okay. Were you taking medicinal marijuana in pill form at any point, or THC?
Yes.
And what do those pills or tablets or capsules look like?
They're purple capsules.
Did you ever suspect or confront Stefan about giving those medications to Madeline?
No.
So during this incident where Madeline had been double dosed with hydroxyzine, do you recall any conversation you had with Stefan and inquiring as to whether or not he had accidentally given her any of your THC?
That hadn't occurred to me. I had asked him the one morning Maddie wouldn't wake up and get ready for school, and she was just out of it. I assumed it was medication related.
Okay.
But I didn't I'm like, did this one medication hit her too hard because we gave it to her late? I called poison control. I needed to see what would happen. Because at this point, I think I had gotten Stefan to admit that he gave her a second dose of the sleeping meds as well, because he thought I had given it to her in the first place.
Okay.
But that was with hydroxyzine. I didn't know anything about THC, the marijuana.
I'm just asking you.
Oh.
I'm asking if you remember having that conversation, because there is a conversation on your phone about you were relaying that Madeline said that she suspected that it was different, bigger pills, and you relayed that to Stefan and had a conversation with him. And if you don't remember it because it was a year ago, that's fine.
Now, the discussion here is over two things. They are discussing an instance where Stefan had given Maddie an extra dose and Jean had confronted him and got that information from him. They don't specifically say that occurred over through text messages, but we know that conversation did occur historically. Didn't occur the night before Maddie went missing. It occurred sometime in the past. He's also mentioned that there was a text message between them where she had asked Stefan if he'd given Maddie some of her marijuana tablets because Maddie said the tablets were bigger than what she usually was given. So we're given context here. This interview gives us context. There is an instance in the past when Stefan has given Maddie extra medication. The fact that they've asked about this means that they have evidence of it, which means that they do have this in a text message. Again, with them asking about the marijuana, means they have evidence of it. Now, they say that basically the text message they have refers to larger tablets than usual. So I find it interesting that they honed in on the marijuana, and I wonder if that shows in Maddie's toxicology. And also because they questioned the colour of it, it's possible that it may have been still in her stomach contents. But for the purpose of this video, that's me going down a rabbit hole. The point here is that for them to ask Jen about Stefan giving Maddie an additional dose of the medication, that means they have evidence of it there. They've seen a text message on a phone that basically discusses this. So let's have a look at the document and what is said within the document. Now, I will say with this that it would be really, really easy to misinterpret it. If you were to simply skim through the one paragraph at the bottom, then you may misinterpret it completely. So, this is a report on Jen's cellular phone. It's not just talking about the evening before Maddie went missing. It is a report on her phone. So upon reviewing Jennifer's cellular phone download, the following was observed. Jennifer would set an alarm at 07:30 hours on days that she would bring Madeline to school. There were messages between Jennifer and Stefan on 25th of the 2nd of 24, starting at 23:39 hours, that stated the following. So the first part of that paragraph is talking about in general. She would set her alarm for 7:30 on the days that she was taking Maddie to school. That's not talking about the specific day that Maddie went missing. Then you have the list of the text messages from that evening. These messages confirm that Jennifer stated during interviews that Stefan and Madeline were alone in his bedroom. Note, when they've done those text messages, each one of them has been identified with date and time. Go down to the bottom paragraph. On the 25th of February, Jen set her cell phone on a wireless charger at 11:54. On the 26th, Jen set an alarm to go off at 9 o'clock. The alarm was removed from notifications while still on the wireless charger. On 26th of the 2nd at 9:19, the cell phone was physically removed from the wireless charger. This is consistent with her daily activities with removing the alarm notifications. So now they are talking in general again. They're saying this is what normally happens with her phone. There were several other messages between her and Stefan regarding Madeline sleeping in the same room together. Geez, their grammar is bad in some of these reports. Now, we know here that they are referring to other occasions. There were several other messages between them, meaning there are several other occasions of Stefan and Maddie sleeping together in the same room. This is not saying that there were several messages on the evening of the 25th. There was also text messages between Stefan and Jennifer claiming Stefan gave Madeline an extra dose of her medication when it was not necessary. There's no date or time given on this. They are not discussing the 25th or the 26th. Otherwise, it would be labelled as such. It would have the date and the time in the label. This is in the same paragraph, is in the same part of the paragraph when they are discussing past behaviours. This is consistent with her daily activities with removing alarm notifications. This is what normally happens. There were several other messages about them sleeping together. That's not about that one evening, that's about historically. There was also text messages. This is talking about messages from the past. There's no date and time on these because they are past messages. They don't relate to the evening of the 25th. Otherwise, the date and the time would be attached. So, until or if the toxicology report is released, we won't know if Maddie was given additional medications that night. This reference to a text message is referring to something that happened in the past. You get the context of that from the interview and also from the structure of this paragraph, the wording. Every instance where they are referring to the 25th of the or the 26th, they label it as such. But when they talk about the additional medication, it is not labelled as having occurred on the 25th or the 26th. It is something that occurred in the past. Okay, I realise we're already an hour and 20 in, but I'm just going to push on and put all this in one video. So thank you if you are still with me on this. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is essentially my own fault. After me saying that I verify things, I had taken for granted. I believe I had heard it mentioned by another creator and it just stuck in my head that as being fact, which just shows you how easy it is for us to become misinformed. But I had believed that the 911 call was made by Stephanie, when in actual fact it was made by Letitia, who was Jen's stepsister, I believe. So I actually inadvertently, when I put out the uninterrupted 911 calls, labelled it as Stephanie. Now, here's a bit of crazy YouTube irony for you. I've now privatised that particular 911 video. I corrected it and relabelled it with Letitia, and I've re-uploaded it, but this time round, YouTube has demonetised it. Even though it is exactly the same video, simply with the name changed within the actual video. So, explain that for me. Just crazy. So, I'm going to play the 911 call and then I'll show you an image and then I'll show you an excerpt from one of the documents. Now, I am playing the excerpt of the 911 call from the original video, so it does say Stephanie. It is not Stephanie, it is Letitia. Let's just look at these.
Police, possibly. I'm reporting a missing child.
Okay. And what is the name of the business there, ma'am?
The business?
Okay. And the child that you're trying to report missing, are you calling on behalf of the parent?
Yes, on behalf of the mother. She's my
Okay. Okay. And then and ma'am, how old is the child? And could I go ahead and get her name?
Yes, it's...
And ma'am, what is your name?
My name is...
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And just so we recognize you when we arrive there, though, at the advance to come meet with you guys, are you, ma'am, white, black, Indian, Asian, or Hispanic?
I'm Hispanic.
And what color shirt and pants will you be wearing?
Pants, dark wash jeans. I have a green cardigan on and a white shirt.
So you can see her sitting over there on the far right of the image. This is a screenshot from one of the body-worn camera videos. So those people who are more familiar with who's who will probably say, yes, that is Letitia. I've said this in previous videos. I haven't dug into Jen's family because to me that's not overly relevant in terms of what happened to Maddie. Here I'm just clarifying because I made a mistake as to who put the 911 call through. So now let's just verify this with one of the documents. I would just like to comment on how sloppy some of these reports are, because we know that this time is inaccurate. The actual time for the 911 call was, I believe, 4:43. Correct me if I'm wrong, that's not what we're worrying about in this video. 4:43 or 4:46, possibly 4:43. That's irrelevant though for this particular video. But if we look at the first line, on February 26, 2024 at approximately 6:53, which is the wrong time, Letitia Nanez, I don't know how to pronounce that right, I apologise, called 911 to make a missing person report. She stated she was calling on behalf of Jennifer, who is mother to Madeline Soto. So it is quite clear that the 911 call was made by Letitia, not by Stephanie. My mistake, I apologise for causing confusion there. Right, so moving on from that, and I want to talk about this notion that Jen was posing as Maddie at the church, in the footage at the church. Now, I'm just going to say that logically this makes no sense anyway. So I feel a little bit frustrated that I'm having to talk about this in this video, but it does quite often get brought up. So I do need to address it. I'm going to show you where the notion comes from and then show you why it is definitely not the case, aside from basic logic.
And then Stephen said he took her by himself, and then in the interview, Jen said, we dropped him off. She said it several times, and so I don't know if, do you want any conjecture, or no? The conjecture is that she and Maddie are the same size, that she wore Maddie's clothes with the hoodie up to show, to cover the dark hair instead of the light hair, and that was Jen we saw sitting at the church in the picture. Because obviously, from what we've heard, Maddie was already gone by that time. So this elaborate charade put on for everybody's benefit. And she's cool, calm, and collected, and he's a sobbing, wet mess.
Now, I used a photo from 12 months earlier, and yes, okay, what she's saying, Maddie and Jen could be considered to be similar in size, perhaps. But let's really think about this. There is all this camera footage that looks down and into Stefan's car. This idea of Jen hiding in the back seat of the car while Stefan is driving Maddie, the cameras would show it. Also, you have Jen's phone data showing that no, Jen was at home at the particular time. There's also more data which I will get into. But first of all, I'm going to play another video clip. This is the detective showing Jen the footage from the church and discussing it with her.
Yeah, so this is it's hard to show you on my phone because the quality of the video just kind of gets worse when I've downloaded it from the church's computer, and the quality just gets kind of worse. Can you make out like the shape of that being black shorts and that being possibly a green jacket?
I see the green.
Would that, I mean, I know it's very difficult to recognize, but would that be something, some clothes that she owns, or
Yes.
would the quality be too bad for you to be able to tell based on that?
I mean, the quality's terrible. But
Yeah.
the color scheme.
Would that be akin to something that she owns?
Yeah.
Gotcha. And the hair looks a little dark in the from here.
Dirty blonde. It could pass for dirty blonde.
That could possibly
yeah.
be her. Okay. Is that? I can't tell just from looking at it, but is that is that Stefan's car? It looks a little darker from there, but I almost can't tell like if it's a Toyota or looks a little different.
From the front looks different. That looks like a Toyota from the front.
From the front it looks different, right?
And then from the side, it could be.
It's got a little.
Cadillac.
I mean, yeah, the grill is kind of the same a little bit. The headlights look a bit the same. Okay, cool.
Now, like I said, the documents will show that this vehicle is actually definitely not the Lincoln. But basically the discussion, you know, they think, oh, the hair might be too dark for it to be Maddie. Then they talk about the car. The front of the car does not look like the Lincoln, they say. Jen says it looks like a Toyota. They talk about side on. It could be the Lincoln, maybe. Still not really affirmative. Then they're talking about the grille of the car again. But from this discussion, it sounds pretty clear that the vehicle they're looking at is definitely not the Lincoln. So let's look at all the documents relating to this and see what we can find out. Now, just as an aside, you can see in this paragraph that they actually did do a ping on her laptop, and that it only showed up as being somewhere downtown Orlando. But let's have a look at the stuff to do with the church. So this is where the highlighted bit is. Sorry, they put a hole in it which makes it harder to read. A camera located at a nearby church, or that kind of said located, but at a nearby church located at Townloop Boulevard, which showed what appeared to be a juvenile being dropped off at the church at approximately 8:40 by a dark car. The juvenile sits in the parking lot for approximately 15 minutes before walking away. Deputies spoke with an unidentified church employee who stated she remembered seeing a juvenile fitting Maddie's description sitting in the parking lot at approximately 8:40. So we have the info we have there is that somebody was dropped off at approximately 8:40 by a dark car. I would not describe Stefan's car as being a dark car, so let's start with that. But let's also find out the location of his car at around 8:40. So you basically have camera footage of his car at 8:39 at EB Osceola Parkway / Thacker. So that must be at an intersection. And then 2 minutes later at John Young Park intersection and Thacker. So you can see here, for starters, between 8:39 and 8:41, the vehicle was being driven. It was moving. Also, it was not in the location of the church, and you can see from these images, you could not mistake that as a dark vehicle. So in terms of this whole notion of this great big evil plan of them driving Jen to the church and dropping her off to make it look like he dropped off Maddie and then picking her up down the road, totally BS. It didn't happen. There is clear documentation, there is clear evidence from the camera footage to show us that is not the situation. Of course, Deb Stearns would like people to think that's what occurred because she would like people to look at Jen Soto and consider Jen Soto to be the evil mastermind in the whole equation. But at the end of the day, that video has absolutely nothing to do with Maddie's disappearance. Okay, so again, I was watching another creator about a week ago, and this person basically said that based on the interview with Maddie's friend, that Maddie couldn't have been pregnant because she had had her period late January. So I thought, well, this is interesting. I need to follow up on this. So I started by listening to the Friends interview and then compared that with the interview with Jen Soto. And once again, this is another case of misinformation. This is a case where someone has once again misinterpreted something they heard. So let's listen to those videos.
I know you shared with either Detective Payne or the other female that was speaking with you that you and Maddie kind of were maybe on the same cycle.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Okay. And in the interview with Detective Payne, you said that Maddie may have gotten her period later on.
Yeah.
Was that in February or January?
January.
January, okay. Did you two discuss at all about February's?
No, not really.
Okay.
So he asked her about their periods being out of sync. And then he says, and you said that she got her period later on. Now, apparently, it was said that it was 2 weeks later than hers or something. And she said, yes. And he said, when was that? And she said, January. He wasn't asking when she got her period. She was asking, when was it that Maddie eventually had her period? Basically, it was, so Maddie got hers later on. Yes. When was that? January. She didn't give a date in January. And it seems that the person who misinterpreted this believed that Jade had said that she got her period in January and then had gone, well, if she got her period in January and Maddie got hers 2 weeks later, then she must have had it at least mid-January, probably late January, which is not the case. The only information given here was that Maddie's period occurred in January. The information was not given as to when Jade's period occurred. It was simply, okay, Maddie's occurred later. Yes, it occurred later. When was that? It occurred in January. So let's listen to the part of the interview where this is discussed with Jen.
Did she disclose to you about her, has she had a period yet, do you know?
Yeah.
Did she disclose to you about that?
Yes.
So do you know her regular
Cycle?
I usually put it, she usually tells me when she gets it and we put it in an app.
Mm-hmm.
I must have missed it this month, or she must have not told me this month when she got it, but I have it I have it written down when she got it back in January.
When should she have had it this month, roughly?
The beginning of the month. She got it January 1st. So it should have been around the end of February.
End of January, 1st of February?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And was she pretty consistent on telling you?
Yeah, she would tell me when she would get her period.
So Jen states quite clearly here that Maddie got her period on the 1st of January. This fits in with what her best friend said. When asked, did she get it or when did you get it? She said, January. She didn't give a specific date. Jen gives us a specific date. So it wasn't mid-January. It wasn't late January. Maddie got her period on the 1st of January. And then Jen says, she stuffs up a little. She says she should have then got it at the end of February, but she should have been saying at the beginning of February or the end of January. And he corrects her with that at the end of January or at the beginning of February. He corrects her with that to make it clear that she means that it should have occurred at the start of February. So, and this is where Jen is saying that she didn't know if Maddie had her period at the beginning of February because she didn't tell her about it. So this notion that Maddie did get her period, it was just late, nothing to worry about, is actually incorrect. Yes, Maddie's period was late, but it occurred on the 1st of January. Nobody seems to be aware of Maddie having a period after that period in time. She certainly didn't have one mid-January or late January as inferred by this other content creator. What actually was said here was that she got her period after Jade a few weeks later. When was that? It was January. So for the notion here is that Jade's occurred in December, Maddie's was due in December, but it occurred late and it occurred in January. Jen confirms the date as the 1st of January. After that, there is no more confirmation of Maddie having her period. I know that many of us don't want to consider the notion of Maddie being pregnant, but we can't just manipulate facts to try and convince ourselves that it wasn't the case. We have to look at the actual facts and accept that it could be a possibility. Now, the next thing that I need to discuss is how old Jen is. Now, the confusion from this comes from listening to Tyler's interview, and Tyler talks about having met Jen when he was 16. They were together for a while when they were 18, and they broke up. And then at a later date, when he was already engaged to Tatiana, him and Jen had a one-night stand, which resulted in Maddie. Now, I should play that clip, but having spent almost 2 days on this video now, I'm just going to direct you to that interview. So that's the interview done with Tyler, but essentially that's what was said. He met Jen when he was 16, they were together when he was 18, broke up at a later date, then later on, when he was engaged to Tatiana, that's when he had an affair with Jen, and Maddie resulted. Where am I going with this? There is a belief that Jen was like 18 when she had Maddie, or 16 when she had Maddie. This notion comes from this interview with Tyler, I believe. in reality, Jen is actually older than that. Because if she was 16 when she had Maddie, that would now make her just turning 30. You've already seen, I showed you that photo previously where it was Jen's 35th birthday. You can tell from looking at that Maddie was around 12. Also, Jen specifically states when her birthday is. So let's look at a clip and also a bit of information.
Would you be okay with our digital people looking at your phone to verify there's no stuff coming into socials, text, things like that?
That's fine.
Do you have the phone?
Yeah.
What they'll do is they'll plug it in, they'll do a forensic download of it so they have the data. That way they can go through it and say, you know, we did receive things, we didn't receive things, here's the communications in and out, things like that, so we can verify that for you.
That's fine.
What's your password on it?
030288.
030288. Okay.
Is that a birthday?
My birthday.
It's your birthday?
Yeah.
So Jen quite clearly states her birthday as being in March of 1988. And here, if you have a look at a Florida residence directory, then it also has Jen. I don't care if I'm putting out her current address because, well, I don't really care about Jen Soto. Hopefully this won't come and bite me in the ass. But it says quite clearly here as well, age 36, born March 1988. Jennifer Lisette Soto is 36 years old. If you look this page up, it does also show her mailing address as being the townhouse still. So clearly that's not changed. But we have this document here showing clearly that she is 36 years old, born March the 2nd, 1988, which is exactly what she said there in that interview with the officers. And you saw that image, the photo that I showed earlier, which was from Jen's 35th birthday 12 months earlier. Okay, I've got 2 more points to cover, so I may be able to get this in under 2 hours, we'll see. The next one is a fairly recent thing that's been discussed. And now I do applaud the content creator who came up with this idea, because it shows that they are thinking outside the box. But also they are applying their own personal experiences to a situation, and unfortunately this time they may have got it wrong. What am I talking about? There is this notion that's been put out there that someone in Jen's family was doing a drug deal. Basically, when the cops arrived to find out about Maddie being missing. This notion was that basically the car pulled in at the grandmother's workplace really fast ahead of the police car, and that one of the people jumped out of the car straight away, and that infers criminal activity. Okay, maybe it does, or maybe it infers that this person or these people were a couple of people who basically went to find the police officers because they were searching for other children. They'd been waiting several hours to report Maddie missing, so Stephanie's boyfriend took the initiative to go find the police and bring them back to Jen's mother's workplace. Let's hear how that went down.
I think he let us know that there were other kids missing in the area, which is why you guys weren't responding quick enough. I think an 8 and a 9-year-old had gone missing around the same time too. In a playground, they forgot to tell. They didn't tell their mom they were going to the playground or something like that. So all the cops were over there on that side of Hunter Street. My sister's boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, whatever he is, thought it would be a good idea to go to the park and talk to a cop there and see if he could bring a cop back, and that's what he did.
Okay.
Give me a second, bro.
Hey,
Go ahead.
Let me finish up with this and I'll give you a call.
Are you able to pick up call 931, please? I'm currently working possible signal leak. Can I hold off on that? Is that from the other one? 26. Stop. Of course. Do they speak English?
So essentially what you saw there in that video was Stephanie's ex-boyfriend having gone and collected the police and said, we have a missing child, we need you to come and speak to us. And the police followed him back to the office. He jumped out of the car to direct them where to go. It wasn't someone about to do a drug deal in front of the police. It was simply Stephanie's boyfriend having gone to collect the police and bring them back to where they were all waiting to report Maddie was missing. Don't forget, they waited 2 hours after reporting her before the officers finally showed up. So, kudos for the somewhat inventive interpretation, but no, we know that that's actually not the case. Now, we're finally on to the last one, and that is the storage unit. Now, I've already addressed this in terms of evidence. We know there was nothing of evidentiary value found in the storage unit. The hard drive that Chris handed over hadn't been accessed in 4 years. We know there was no CSAM material on it because the CSAM material that they retrieved only dated back 4 years, meaning there was absolutely nothing in the storage unit. The only idea that they had, or the only thing that gave them the idea of Stefan accessing the storage unit, was this notion that the storage unit code had been used. So let's have a look at a few docs and we'll see what was originally thought and what the actual case was. Now, I know some people have gone, well, you know, maybe he went to the storage unit and he just drove in behind another vehicle. Okay, maybe that's the case, but there's no witnesses that have come forward to say that that occurred. Like I said, there's nothing of evidentiary value that was found in the storage unit. There's nothing to suggest that he ever went there. And we also have the fact that from the time that he was clocked on camera after leaving the Stearns' house to when he returned to Orlando, he would have had a real struggle to have also gone to the storage unit. But anyway, let's look at paragraph 15 here. So, with this information, contact was made with the Northport Police Department to make contact at the storage facility to see if Stephen had possibly went to Christopher's storage unit. Going down a bit, information was received from the facility manager that records showed Christopher's access code to the storage facility was manually entered into the keypad for entry on the 28th, and that should say the 2nd of 2024 at approximately 9:08 hours, and then again at 9:16. Now, we know that even if this was a possibility that the access code was used, it definitely could not have been Stefan, because at 9:08 he had to have been well on his way back to Orlando, because he was recorded as having returned to Orlando at, I believe, 11 o'clock. In morning traffic, there's no way that he could have made that trip in under 2 hours. So originally you have the belief that the storage unit code was used to access the storage unit. This is the only one single bit of evidence that was considered pointing to Stefan having gone to the storage unit. There is nothing else that points to the possibility of him having gone to the storage unit. No witnesses, no camera footage, nothing of evidentiary value in the storage unit. So let's find out what they later discovered. So if we go to the third line from the bottom towards the end, Dennis provided a computer printout of Christopher's account activity from the 1st of January 2024 to present, which showed Christopher's access code was used twice on the 31st of January, and then I'll skip to the next page. And then if we skip past those details, the only other time Christopher's access code was utilised was on the 16th of February. And then you've got the entry and the exit times. Next paragraph, Christopher's access code was not used as previously thought. However, this information was not known at the time of the lawfully requested and executed warrant. So we know that the storage unit code was not used the morning that Stefan went to Northport. We know there was nothing of evidentiary value in the storage unit. There's no witnesses that came forward and said, yeah, he followed my car in when the gate went up and down. There is absolutely nothing to suggest that he went to that storage unit, nothing to suggest that he had a reason to go to that storage unit. So it appears that it was just a red herring. I think the confusion with this comes from the fact that Chris Stearns and Jen Soto both pushed the storage unit narrative as a red herring to distract from the fact that Stefan actually went into the house at Northport. I have covered this in another video. Like I said, worth watching my videos about Chris Stearns and the trip to Northport, because there's a lot of things that I discovered that I highlighted in those videos. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this video. I hope that I've provided some clarification for people, and I hope that I've managed to debunk a few things that have been mistakenly put out there or misinterpreted. This has been a very long video, so thank you so much if you're still listening. So if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. Also, please hit the like button. I get a lot of comments. I get a lot of people hitting like, but I'd love to see more people hitting the like button, because that gets my video out there and it gets seen by more people. Also, please do leave a comment. I love reading people's comments on my videos. I love hearing your perspective, your ideas, because there are some really brilliant things that people have to say in the comments for my videos, and that's always something that I like to read. I'll do my best to respond to your comments, but with the number of comments I get, there's only so many hours in the day. But I certainly do my best. So, once again, thank you for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one.
I think you wondering, did you ever give a fuck about